Have you ever met someone who changed everything with just a few words? The military simulation ground to a standstill. A single phrase in Arabic, crucial to the mission, had been mistranslated. Confusion rippled across the room as 5 nations' troops froze, unsure of their next move. Then came a quiet voice, low, deliberate, from the back of the room. He said, "Hold position, not advance." Silence fell, heads turned. Standing in the shadows near the equipment racks was a man no one had noticed. Gray hair, blue janitor uniform. Monroe stitched on his chest, a mop in one hand, resolve in his eyes. Could this unassuming figure hold the key to saving the day? A general stepped forward slowly, brows furrowed. "How do you know that?" The old man inhaled steady and calm, as if unlocking a door inside himself. "I spent 3 decades hearing things like that before anyone handed me a mop." Fort Lancer woke before the sun. By the time most people reached for their first coffee, the base had already been alive for hours. Helicopter blades cut through the chilled Arizona sky. Boots thundered against the gravel training paths in rhythmic unison. Somewhere, a loudspeaker barked orders in clipped English, while another echoed German phrases for a visiting NATO unit. The air smelled of fuel, sand, and the quiet intensity of discipline. Fort Lancer wasn't glamorous, but it was efficient. A self-contained organism powered by clockwork routines and camouflage bodies. But while the soldiers drew headlines and salutes, there was another force that kept the base running. Quiet, unnoticed, essential. The janitorial staff. You didn't see them unless the floors were dirty or the toilets clogged. They moved like phantoms through metal quarters, pushing carts and hauling bins. While conversations about international protocol buzzed just over their heads to Private Jordan Vega, a newly assigned infantry recruit, the janitors were just background noise until he noticed one in particular. The man was old, much older than anyone else on the cleaning crew. His back was straight, his hands precise, his name tag read, E. Monroe. Every morning at 5:01 sharp, Monroe would walk into the East Wing, mop in one hand, folded cloth in the other. No small talk, no complaints. He never slouched. And unlike most janitors, he made eye contact with officers when they passed. Not out of defiance, but from a habit long formed and never broken. "Who's that guy?" Vega once whispered to a fellow private, watching the man polish the hallway just outside the strategy center. "Him? That's Elias. Been here since before I got assigned. Quiet guy. Doesn't say much. Ex-military." I think that made Vega pause. Something about the way the old man moved did feel different. It wasn't just muscle memory. It was presence. Like he'd walk through fire and come out with his dignity perfectly intact. What Vega didn't know, what almost no one on base knew, was that Elias Monroe had once held a clearance level higher than most of the brass now stomping past him. 45 years earlier, Berlin, 1978. Elias was 26 and fluent in 4 languages already. The Cold War didn't feel cold in the back alleys of East Germany. It felt like a blade pressed against the ribs. He wasn't a soldier in the traditional sense. No rifle slung over his shoulder. No medals displayed on his chest, but his missions were lethal in a quieter way. Intercepting communications, decoding enemy movements, disappearing into cities no one remembered. He could mimic accents, detect lies by breath patterns, and had once translated a 3-hour negotiation between 2 hostile generals without a single note. Intelligence officers knew him by codename, Shade Owl. Allies trusted him. Enemies feared he might be listening. His career stretched over decades. Assignments in Riyadh, Ankara, Sevres. By the 1980s, he was fluent in 7 languages. By 2001, he was stationed at Kandahar, decoding intercepted cell transmissions that often meant the difference between a roadside bomb and a safe convoy. But behind the skill and service, Elias was also a husband and father. He married Miriam, a military nurse from Delaware in 1985. They raised 2 children across a blur of deployments and relocations from Germany to Korea, Virginia to Qatar. Miriam held the family together with laughter, letters, and late-night prayers. Then the unexpected cancer took her in 2016. Elias didn't break down. He simply dimmed. The funeral was small. He wore his uniform one last time. After the service, he folded it carefully and put it away like closing a chapter with trembling hands. When retirement came, Elias wasn't ready. Not financially, not emotionally, and certainly not mentally. He still woke at dawn, still reviewed foreign news sites in multiple languages. Still kept his hearing sharp by listening to military chatter online. But the job offers didn't come. He applied for contractor positions, analyst roles, teaching spots at military academies. Rejections stacked up. Some were polite, others blunt. "You're highly experienced, Mr. Monroe, but our needs are evolving. Frankly, sir, we're looking for someone younger with current certifications. Your background is impressive, but your profile is outdated." Outdated? That word followed him like a shadow. Not failed, not unqualified, just discarded. Eventually, the pension began to run thin. Bills crept up, rent rose, groceries felt heavier by the month. His old hands, once fluent in code switching, Russian, and Farsi, now gripped receipts and coupon clippings. Then one morning, he saw a bulletin. Janitor wanted part-time Fort Lancer. Operations building must pass base security clearance. Start immediate. He didn't think twice. The irony wasn't lost on him. The same halls where he once briefed NATO translators now needed mopping. But Elias wasn't proud. He knew he was practical. And he missed the rhythm of the base, the sound of boots, the pulse of order. So he reapplied, got cleared, and put on the blue uniform without complaint. Most saw a quiet old man with sharp eyes and silent steps. A ghost in a hallway. But some, like Private Vega, couldn't help but feel something deeper was hidden behind that mop and faded name tag. A sense that this man wasn't cleaning floors. He was watching, listening, waiting. And the moment he'd step out of the shadows would be the moment the world realized it had misjudged him all along. Could one man's past turn the tide of a failing mission? The multinational simulation had been planned for 8 months. 5 nations, 1 operation, 0 room for error. At Fort Lancer's West Command Building, dubbed the Corps, nearly 200 officers, techs, and observers assembled under the dim light of projectors in multi-language HUDs. NATO flags lined the rear wall. Computerized terrain models were rendered in real time across a digital floor the size of a basketball court. The scenario was grim but realistic. A hostile militia had taken civilians hostage near a contested border. Rapid insertion and synchronized maneuvering were essential. Units from the United States, France, Germany, Poland, and Italy would coordinate in a complex rescue op. All communication had to be managed through a central linguistic AI. The stakes were high, not just politically, but financially. The operation had cost over $300,000 in planning, equipment, and international logistics, and it was falling apart by the second. A voice crackled over the comms in Arabic. The translation AI blinked. Text rolled across the English screen. Advance. A second later, the U.S. battalion leader repeated, "Advance on target. Move forward." But Elias Monroe, who had been polishing a metal railing outside the simulation floor, froze mid-motion, his brow tightened. He looked up at the digital board. "Advance," he murmured. No, that's not what he said. Inside, the simulated troops repositioned on the live map. French and Polish teams hesitated, confused. The German commander barked into his headset. Italian comms erupted in dispute. Then came the chaos. "Stop. Stop everything," shouted the German Major Weber, slamming his hand on the console. "That's not the command." Colonel Armand Dupont from the French side stepped away from the screen. "We were told to hold our perimeter. Why are they advancing?" General Calvin Briggs stood at the center of the room, jaw clenched, his arms crossed over a crisp olive uniform. "Get me the translation logs now." A tech scrambled to pull up the data. "Sir, it's coming from the AI interface. Arabic to English says advance. Cross-referenced with field usage." "It still reads as that's wrong," said a calm voice behind them. Everyone turned.